It's The Joy of Theater with special guest Caleb Cabiness on this episode of Play Saves the World, the ongoing conversation about the meaning of play for human flourishing. Hello, and welcome everybody to Play Saves the World. It is so good to have you joining us today. My name is Daniel Hilty.
My name is Kevin Taylor.
And my name is Caleb Cabiness.
Caleb, welcome. We are so glad to have you with us today.
Thank you. It's an honor to be here. A
Be
joy,
awesome.
one might say.
It is our honor and joy, as it by far, to have you here. Thank you so much. We were just talking about the different places from around the United States that we are logging on today to make this podcast episode. Caleb, you're up there in Minnesota.
Yep. Around St. Paul region, capital of the state, not Minneapolis.
St. Paul is the capital, but not Minneapolis.
Correct.
And yet, am I right that the two cities I kind of merge? Is that right? Is there a space between St. Paul and Minneapolis?
They are right next to each other. They're called the Twin Cities. They operate in synchronization a lot of the time, but they are independent entities.
Okay. So there's like
How
a
far is
mayor
that
of
from you, Daniel?
Yeah, from me.
Yeah, by car.
Oh my goodness!
Anything
by car.
west of Tennessee is just a vague shape in my head, so no.
I
offense, it's
understand.
just how it is.
Even Missourians refer to our state as the flyover state.
Right.
I would say, I don't know, 15 hours by car. Do you have a sense for that, Caleb?
Okay.
To St. Louis from here?
Yeah, or mid-Missouri. Yeah, I'm
Mid-Missouri? I'm not sure about mid-Missouri. To St. Louis, I think it's about 8-9 hours by car.
okay.
But
So
mid-Missouri, I'm not sure.
So we're about another 2 hours past St. Louis. So yeah,
Okay.
11, 12 hours. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's but then the furthest out from the Midwestern access here is Kevin. You're in North Carolina.
I'm in North Carolina.
Yeah, which you just said before we went on. The air is like the San Diego of the East Coast. Is that what you were saying? It's just nice, warm weather.
It is till
everything's
it
great.
isn't, but right now it's really pleasant. Yeah.
Okay.
Hate to brag, but our mountains do their work.
That's good. And before we leave introductions, also I just got to say, online we talked about it before the recording as well, that Caleb and Kevin and I all happen to be, and our spouses all happen to be alums of the same alma mater. We at Wake Forest in Winston-Salem, and Caleb, your family goes back generations.
Generations. I'm a third generation Wake Forest alum.
That's amazing.
Wow.
That's amazing. Yeah. So
Because we didn't know that at first.
no, though Caleb knew it.
Sometimes
But I didn't
know
know
it.
Caleb, so that means, did I know it? If Caleb knows something I don't know, does it exist for me? If a tree
You're not tapped
falls,
into the neural network that the rest of the Wake Forest alums are?
That started
the tree
after we
falls
graduated.
on the,
That's right.
Yeah. The tree falls
Yeah.
in the neural network. Is it still active? You'd still have to do a philosophy class, Caleb?
I did, yep.
Yeah. Still required.
And I had to take 4 gruelingly long semesters of French. God bless my French professors. I worked very, very hard for those C's.
So they still have a foreign language requirement. They stuck to it.
That's great.
So many schools
That's
have dropped
great.
it. Wow.
Do people still roll the quad when there is a victory? Okay.
Oh, yes. For those unfamiliar with this, this strange practice is that Wake Forest students will throw toilet paper over the trees of their own quad when they win a ball game. I think it originally started because, correct me if I'm wrong here, we were afraid of another school TPing our trees, so we did it first to protect the other school from TPing our trees.
I love that. It's a preemptive TPing.
Yeah.
I have
Sounds
to.
a little urban legendy to me, but it could be.
Right.
Because Wingate does that as well, I've discovered. So I think it's
really?
probably just student ingenuity. But who knows?
Okay.
Who knows?
As a general
Free toilet paper.
philosophy, I applaud and celebrate preemptive humiliation.
That's why you've sporked your front lawn. Is that right, Daniel?
I have. I'm
Prevent
looking
the
right
kids.
now outside of the window, and the front lawn is a mess because I don't want any of the neighborhood kids doing it. So that's right. It's the way it works. Yeah. Yeah. Well, anyway, Caleb, it's so great to have you here. Including the shared experiences at our alma mater, but more importantly, for your perspective as a practitioner of the theater arts, and so we want to get into that in a little bit. But first off, if you don't mind, just tell us a little bit about yourself, please. Tell our listeners kind of the balcony view of the story of Caleb Cabiness.
Sure. So I am primarily an actor, again, primarily for the stage, but I also do some film and TV and internet and infomercial, whatever. I'm currently living in the Twin Cities, like I said, in St. Paul, Minnesota, but I am originally from North Carolina. I moved up here just for the theater scene after I graduated college and after I got married. So college was at Wake Forest University, as we've said, in Winston-Salem, North Carolina. I graduated with a theater degree in 2019, and then the following year, something happened that shut down a bunch of theaters. I'm not sure what that would have been.
Really? How weird. Yeah.
How weird. So I had booked my first professional gig, and then the theater industry basically shut down.
Oh, that's awful.
Yeah. But that gave me time to focus my energy into something else, which ended up being a Minecraft YouTube channel. Did that for a while. Eventually, the theater industry came back up, shifted my focus back away from that YouTube channel into my acting career again. And I've been acting and writing and directing and sound designing for the theater ever since.
Wow.
Yeah.
So the
Is
Minecraft, was that a hobby or is that a source of income?
I would call it more hobby. There was minor income from it.
Sure.
I think I made $5,000 from it over the course of several years, but nothing to live off of.
Is it still active?
Not currently. We'll see if it comes back.
Okay. And so how's the theater scene in the Twin Cities?
It's great. So when I was in college, I did this study away program, study quote unquote abroad to New York City for one semester, and we ended up training in theater, doing acting classes, voice and movement, dance classes, and then we ended up seeing 45 or 50 shows over the course of the one semester.
Wow.
It was an incredible experience.
That is.
And because of that experience, I knew that I did not want to live in New York City. It was too fast-paced, too cutthroat maybe for me, and just not what I wanted. I like living around trees and water. So senior year of college, in the theater major, we did this research project, which was to research all of the theater hubs in the United States.
Okay.
And I think there were a couple of international theater hubs as well that we researched, such as London, etc.
Yeah.
But through this research project, I found that Minneapolis has a great theater scene. The folk wisdom, again, kind of urban legendy that may or may not be true, is that Minneapolis has the second most theater seats per capita after New York City.
Wow.
I think in all likelihood it's probably New York City, then Chicago, then the Twin Cities. But it's still a very strong theater scene,
We lived
lots of
in
connection
Houston,
to the arts.
and they said the same thing about Houston. I
Yeah,
don't know.
so who knows what you
Houston's
can
up
trust.
there, strangely. Yeah.
Regardless, it is a great theater scene. And I found, especially compared to New York, the people here all want each other to succeed, which is just lovely.
Nice.
Yeah.
You can do a show with somebody, and then if that same person books a role that you were going after, it's just natural to be happy for them rather than sad for yourself. And I just have found that to be so great.
Sounds like a very supportive community. Yeah.
I found it to be, yeah.
Oh, that's
I guess
great.
a little more, some recent credits that I've done were this past January 2025, I had the opportunity to direct the musical that I wrote, The Joy of Painting, a Bob Ross musical, for one of the country's largest Bob Ross art exhibitions, which was in
Excellent.
Rocky Mount, North Carolina. It's eastern toward the coast.
Yeah.
That was a wonderful experience. We'll talk about that more later. Currently, I am playing the actor C.S. Lewis in a play about C.S. Lewis and J.R.R. Tolkien's friendship throughout the years. Also a great experience. I get to really dig into a lot of real historical events and live in the world of these wonderful authors and the friendships that they had. I have a performance tonight, actually, so I'll be going to that after we wrap up recording.
Oh, bless your heart. Wow. Wow.
That's great. That's great.
So I was going to ask where it is. So yeah, obviously it's there in the Twin Cities, the production. Okay.
Yeah. I would share information about where to get tickets, but I think we're sold out for the rest of the run.
That's
well
amazing.
Well done.
Yeah.
And is it the two of them, or is it the whole group of the writers?
It's the whole group of writers.
Yeah.
There were so many of the Inklings, is what they called themselves.
Mm-hmm.
But in the play, the playwright Ron Reed decided to narrow it down to only 5 or 6 in the play.
I'm not very familiar with the Inklings.
Yeah.
Are there other names in that group that most of us would recognize?
Probably not. Those were the 2 biggest, but Tolkien's son Christopher was also a member of the Inklings, and he was pretty instrumental in publishing the Silmarillion and lots of Tolkien's posthumous works.
Yeah.
Owen Barfield was another one, and Charles Williams. Those are probably the biggest 4 names, but most people, again, have pretty much only heard of C.S. Lewis and J.R.R. Tolkien.
Okay. Okay.
Was Dorothy Sayers was friends with them, but maybe not in the group or something?
Correct.
Or maybe
It was a male-only group, so she was excluded for that reason, but they were pretty much all friends with her.
Yeah. Yeah, they met at a pub in Oxford, right? And so you can still visit that pub. It's still there.
Yeah.
Is that where you were, Kevin, for a while?
I was at Cambridge, but
You were
did
at Cambridge.
visited the Oxford. So yeah.
Nice.
And there's some other anecdote. Yeah, there's some anecdote that a guy that wrote a book on C.S. Lewis, Michael Ward's Planet Narnia, and it's about the astrology behind the Narnia series, the medieval astrology stuff. So each of the books is a planet in the medieval world. So the Dawn Treader is the sun. He's the first person to figure the secret to the Narnia books, which everyone's agreed he was right on, because
Really?
Lewis was a medievalist. Yeah, and so
That's fascinating.
The moon is the silver chair because he's every once a month he goes crazy and there's silver. There's all this interesting stuff once you find it that he'd hidden. But that anecdote had something to do with something. Where was I going with that? Anyway, I know that Lewis and Tolkien, at one point, the guy that did this research said that Tolkien got annoyed with Lewis, with Jack Lewis, C.S. Lewis Jack, because he was only drinking two pints, or maybe it was three pints of beer at lunch, and he called him a Puritan. And Lewis, also as a bachelor, he didn't use ashtrays, so his home has just had ashes and burned bits in the carpet. Yeah, and just it's just weird. England in that time period, I think, was pretty strange.
England in that time period, particularly Jack C.S. Lewis, his personal life is very interesting. I'd highly recommend a deep dive. Yeah.
So are you strewing ashes all over the stage as you play Jack Lewis, Caleb?
If we were seeping the play in verisimilitude, I'm sure we would. But there's a fair bit of drinking flat, watered down diet root beer.
Oh, is that what that is? Oh,
That's what we're drinking.
yeah.
I've always wondered that. Yeah. Whether when people are drinking things in theater or in TV or movies, whether it's what they're actually drinking. So in this case, it's flat, watered down diet root beer.
Yep, we wanted low caffeine because we're performing in the evenings,
Yeah.
and this is no caffeine. And we wanted no sugar because we're drinking a lot of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting. But it has that kind of color and so I guess you just let it sit out for a while to get flat, so it's not.
So it's tepid. So that's
Fizzing.
probably not pleasant, is it?
No, it's not.
Yeah. Tepid, weak, flat root beer doesn't sound especially great. But you're an actor.
It's a good
and so you
Lenten
can-
practice.
You can enjoy it. Yeah.
It's good for Lent. Makes the
So
heart
we'd
strong.
love to hear more about both the joy of painting and Tolkien in a moment. But first, like how did you come to this world of the stage? I mean, and film, and I mean, have you always known that you wanted to do this, or how did this become a part of your life?
Yeah, good question. I started off doing church plays growing up. So my family was at Methodist Church, the Mears Chapel United Methodist in Greensboro, North Carolina. And growing up, we had a great program for kids of church plays, church choirs, and all of these things. So I grew up doing this, grew up singing, grew up acting. Probably around the time I hit kindergarten, my mom asked me, Caleb, do you think you might want to be an actor? Because she could see how comfortable I was on stage and being, I think she could tell from a young age that this is something that I was gifted at and liked doing. So of course I responded with, no, I don't want to be an actor. I want to be the Green Power Ranger.
Nice.
That's by far the more popular choice. Yeah.
Of course, yes. So then we get to...
Who actually is an actor, ironically.
Who actually is an actor, right. Ironically. We get to middle school. I choose band for my elective instead of theater. So do band all through middle school and high school. When I hit high school, I start picking up theater again. And we had just this incredibly driven theater teacher, Mr. Johnson, who for high school theater in a public high school would put on 4 main stage shows every single year, plus one acts, plus theater festivals and all of these other things.
That's amazing.
I don't know how he found the energy to do that. He would build all of the sets and do all the lighting design and sound design himself too, on top of directing these high schoolers. But that's where I learned to act, because it was a small school. So a lot of the people who wanted to be in the shows were able to be in the shows every time. And I got a lot of experience. 16 main stage shows while I was there, plus the one act, plus the theater festivals and competitions and all of that.
Wow.
This summer before my senior year of high school, I went to the North Carolina Governor's School, which is a 6-week program for juniors and seniors, rising juniors and seniors in high school, to have a major and really dive deep into their subject. So I auditioned for theater, I got accepted, and this 6-week program, we trained in acting, trained in broad theater, and we devised a piece of our own. So that was my first experience with writing a play.
Let me pause there. Where did you go? I was at Governor's School East way back in the day for actually one-act plays. Yeah, I was like creative writing, yeah.
Wow.
I was at St. Andrews in Laurinburg.
Okay. I was at Governor's School East, but they had moved it to Meredith College by the time I went.
Right. Look at that.
Yeah.
My wife also went to North Carolina Governor's School. Anyway,
Wow.
keep going. Yeah.
So many connections.
Look at that.
That's great.
Huh.
Sometime during the time at Governor's School, that's when I made the decision that this is what I want to do for my career. Before that point, it was just something that I was doing because I liked it.
Right.
But at Governor's School, seeped in theater and surrounded by all of these other people who are there because they love it just as much as I do, when I made the decision that I wanted to do this for my career. So I started applying to colleges with the intention of going for a theater degree. Anytime that I would think about going to a college, I would try to go to that college and see a play there. And then I wound up at Wake Forest because they gave me the most financial aid. So that's sometimes you got to follow the money.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Nothing wrong with that.
Nothing wrong with that. And ended up having a great degree. Went for the broad theater degree rather than a specified acting degree, which I could have done at the UNC School of the Arts or any sort of conservatory. I wanted a more well-rounded theater education, so that includes acting, playwriting, lighting design, sound design, production design, all of the above. And I got a taste of all of those and classes in all of those, which I think informs my acting because I have this experience in all of these other things.
Right. I can see how well-rounded, the more well-rounded approach would be helpful in practicing in any of those areas.
Yeah. And I've indeed had to use several of them, even as an actor. I did a show last summer in which I was a puppeteer under a trick table, and I was puppeteering this lunchbox up here. I was under the table. All the while, I had my phone, and I was remotely controlling the sound effects from under the table while I'm puppeteering above the table. So, yeah.
That sounds like so much fun.
That's cray. That's awesome.
Yeah.
What is it about the theater that appeals to you? I mean, so you have these wonderful experiences in governor's school and this amazing teacher in high school and the beginning in church plays. Obviously, you have wonderful gifts for it and talent for it. But is there, why go in this direction as opposed to maybe other areas that you're talented in or interested in? Is there, how does it, now we're kind of getting into the stuff that's harder to talk about, but yeah, I mean, how does it connect to your soul? I mean, what does it mean for you?
That's a great question. There are certainly other talents and gifts that I have that I chose not to pursue because they don't spark that same type of joy. For example, I sing a lot, but I was never felt called to pursue singing on the worship team or singing for a career. I think theater has that special connection with the other actors on stage. When you're in the moment and bouncing not just the lines off of each other, but bouncing the intention off of each other, you can really settle in a way that it really feels like the flow state, for me at least.
Right.
And that feeling, on top of the feeling of connecting with a live audience, which is something you don't get when you're acting in a commercial or acting on film or something. That live audience, I love that direct feedback of I'll say a line and then immediately hearing the audience respond, whether it's a drama or a comedy. It's just a feeling like no other for me.
Wow. But you can't really see them very well, correct? Because of the stage lights? But you can feel their, and you can hear.
You can feel the energy. Yeah.
Yeah. That's great. That's amazing. I've wondered about this because I enjoy being in front of an audience in terms of speaking and talking and that sort of thing. And I'm getting more comfortable with singing, with choir and that kind of thing. And some people have said, why don't you try, doing some like the local theater group, the sort of the volunteer group. Have you ever tried that? I've never really tried it, but I hear what you're saying about it's partly the being on stage with other people. That would be quite exciting. It's almost like being in a band, right? Like you're connected on stage and then you're connected off stage, which is something you don't get if you're in a pulpit or in front of a classroom where you're kind of a solo act. And but I am engaging more with people because I can see their faces. So I have more of a direct contact, it seems.
True.
Versus that darkness that I assume you're kind of got from the stage because we don't. I mean, Daniel's church has that kind of lighting, but mine does not. We yeah, we still use candles vaguely. Daniel's got the stage lights.
The way that that the Bible intended. That was good. Good. That's
Oh goodness, but yeah,
I mean,
that's really it is about connection though, and I can definitely connect with that. Yeah, that there's something about building a connection that's temporary. I guess it's like a game too. Like it's sort of this temporary thing, is it's going to end, and it's partly with strangers as well. That's what's fun. Like you get to connect with strangers, and then everyone goes home. Like you don't really, but that's kind of the electric bit of it for me.
It's fleeting for sure.
Yeah.
I love that. Yeah, that's a great way to put it. It strikes me that, I mean, hearing you describe the meaningfulness of it, of the experience of the stage for you, really does have a lot of parallels with conversations we've had before on this podcast about why play matters. That it's the sense of connection to the people on the stage around, as you're both saying. I mean, it's fleeting. It's for this moment. You enter into this magic circle that we talk about with with any kind of play experience, and also the flow. This sense of flow, that you're in that moment, and you're fully present to that moment in ways that we so often aren't the rest of life. But that's kind of the gift of play in its many forms, is forcing us in a way to be present in ways that we often aren't. And what I find interesting about, we on this podcast, we talk about different expressions of play and playfulness and creativity. We've talked about music, and video games and table games and pigeon keeping and just hobbies, and but with the theater stage in particular uses the language of play, right, in ways that none of the others do, really. Well, I mean, games do, but I mean, your production is called a play, right? I mean, you actually, it's called a play, and you play a role, and I don't know. I mean, have you seen? I know you play games, and we've talked some about that offline. We'll talk about more in a moment. But do you see overlap in the world of play and theater, and does one inform the other? Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. I think we can imagine it like this. If the actors are on stage only reading the words off the page, the audience is not going to be very engrossed in that. Mm-hmm. But if the actors are playing with the lines, trying to figure out how to deliver them differently, how would this character feel in this moment, and trying to portray that, trying to play that character, it really does feel like... I was talking to an actor in Tolkien about this, and he brought up the idea that it's very similar to childhood play. You're on a playground and you are pretending to be superheroes, trying to battle with each other, or trying to be the Green Power Ranger. And to you as a child, you're 100% in there. You are that superhero. You are that Power Ranger, and you're locked in, so to speak. And I think the same is true of theater. The audience is the most engrossed when the actors are playing with their roles, when they are as engrossed as children are when they're playing.
Is that the etymology for why we call it play? Is it because of the actors playing roles? Do you by chance know?
I don't know. I tried to look it up, but I couldn't get much information.
There's gotta be somebody's written
on
something
Britannica, the site for play is so long. Yeah.
And maybe we don't know historically. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
But now St. Augustine did not approve of play because he felt like performing like that is lying. Right? Like and it's sort of that Plato bit where you're creating something that's not reflecting the world. So you're taking yourself further away from the beauty of the world by creating something artificial. but that's why the word in Latin for actor is hypocrite.
Is it?
So that's
Really?
the origin of word hypocrite, is it was the actor. And so it's like they are tricking you into, they're not who they say they are. Yeah, it's kind of wild.
Wow.
Augustine.
Yep, that's my job. Professional
Augustine.
lying.
Professional lie.
At least,
okay, he's just playing.
At least
It's
you're
not
honest
real.
about it. That's right. But that's
Yeah,
true for-
St. Augustine was wrong about that. I mean, he was wrong about, he's amazing, but he was wrong a bunch of times.
Yeah.
That's one of them.
Yeah. I had a seminary professor who said Augustine will always come back to haunt you. It seems like he always turns up in all these spots.
Yeah.
No, that's great, and I love how you bring up the aspect of pretending too. Yeah, I mean, in a way, you get to be the Green Power Ranger. I mean, maybe not the Green Power Ranger specifically, but yeah.
Well, when we play a game, we're kind of hypocrites. We're playing because we act like these little bits matter, and they really have, or that somehow it means you're smart or clever, but. Plenty of smart people are terrible at games. There's like we have to pretend like it matters, and it does matter in the magic circle. But once you leave, and same thing with the play, right? Like if you only go to theater, you would starve to death. Like you have to leave eventually and do something else. But in the circle, it's like time stops. So
Yeah.
And in a way, I think that it inside the world, inside this the magic circle, the world on the stage, and the world outside the magic circle, the world outside the stage. I mean, I think they can kind of serve as lenses for interpreting what really matters.
Yes.
In either direction, anyway. I mean,
Yes.
it's yeah. Our old friend Bernard Suits that we talk a lot about, and in the Grasshopper, just that's. More of even the real world might be play than we often like to acknowledge. Oh, that reminds me. Okay, no, we got to get back to this. All right. Another episode. We got another. Let's visit. Make a note, Kevin. If we can visit, talk about Wittgenstein at some
Can
point.
you borrow a pen?
That's fine. Here, there you go. Anyway, yeah, no, it's fine. You don't have to actually write it down. It's fine.
Oh, thanks. That's great.
So yeah, that's fine. So, tell us, please, Caleb, about the joy of painting. How did that come about? What attracted you to the subject of Bob Ross? How has it changed you doing that?
It came about as my senior project at Wake Forest. I knew that I wanted to do something to challenge myself, which was to write a musical. This is not something that I had much experience with before this. When I was studying abroad in New York, I had written like a 10-minute musical, but
Okay.
nothing on the scale of a one-act or anything. I had also studied Stephen Sondheim in my freshman year at Wake Forest. My professor David Hagee is a Sondheim scholar, and just made me fall in love with his works and with musical theater in general. So I knew I wanted to challenge myself by writing a musical. And I also knew around this time I was dealing with a lot of anxiety and depression, and it was just a tough season for me trying to navigate what is going to come after college. I wasn't really sure at that time. So I knew I wanted to write something positive and encouraging, and something that would be more of a calming presence. And my brother was watching a lot of Bob Ross at this time. Parker is his name. And Parker suggested, why don't you do a Bob Ross musical?
Neat.
So, of course,
Neat.
This
I had to
calming
do it.
dude, yeah, that's
this
really nice.
calming dude
Yeah.
with a positive message, lots of positive things to say in his own show. So, of course, it was natural. It just made sense.
Yeah.
So I spent the latter half of 2018 and the beginning part of 2019 working on this 30-minute musical, The Joy of Painting. I had a 6-person cast which was Bob Ross, who is on the TV, and I used his direct quotes from the TV show.
For the TV moments of the play.
Yes.
Neat,
and then
neat.
he is teaching painting to this young girl named Ellie, who is the protagonist of the show, and she has a coming-of-age moment through the lessons that he teaches on TV. Yeah.
Oh, that sounds
And then it...
wonderful. Go ahead, sorry.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah. And then it's his classic lessons of, everybody needs a friend, so she has to go out and make a friend. There's no mistakes. There's only happy accidents.
Oh, I love that one.
You got to have light in order to have dark. It's just like in life. You got to have a little sadness once in a while so you know when the good times are coming. So I try to incorporate all of his big lessons into the show. And sometime around July of last year, 2024, I had a mentor from college reach out to me and say, Caleb, you wrote a Bob Ross musical, didn't you? And I said, yes, I did. She said, I just did this gig at the Dunn Center in North Carolina and I found out that every year they have this big Bob Ross art exhibition. I think we should pitch your musical to them.
Oh, yeah.
And I said, I have not thought about the musical in 5 years. I'm sure I'm a better writer now than I was then. So I spent all of last summer rewriting my musical from a cast of 6 down to a cast of 2.
Wow.
So that was challenging in itself. I ended up only doing Bob Ross and Ellie the protagonist, and I had to figure out how do I make this 6-person cast into a 2-person cast. And of course, I'm still casting my brother as Bob Ross. So I had to figure out how am I going to direct this show from Minnesota, where I live, to North Carolina, where it's going to be performed.
Oh, wow.
So I had this casting call, got lots of great submissions. I ended up going with a current Wake Forest senior named Mariana Bailey. She was just fantastic Ellie, and we just did it in January. So it was a wonderful experience.
Sounds amazing.
So you were never in Rocky Mount, you mean?
I flew down to Rocky Mount for 1 week to do in-person rehearsals, but we had been doing Zoom rehearsals for 2 months.
Wow, so
up to
Zoom
that
is
point.
changing directing that much.
Yeah. I was able to direct it from here most of the time.
Huh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
But you didn't get to see it at the festival.
I did. I was down there. So
Okay, you did get
the
to
one
go.
person
Okay,
of
okay, I thought
in-person
that would be kind of painful.
rehearsals and the performances.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Does a recording of the production exist somewhere on the interwebs that a person could see it?
There is a recording on YouTube. It is at my YouTube channel, formerly used for Minecraft, called Cheese Dud.
Cheese Dud. Okay.
Cheese Dud.
Okay, we'll put a link to that.
Yep.
So look to Cheese Dud. Thank you. That's awesome.
Yeah.
And then and then you were saying more recently, or like in fact right now, in fact tonight you're in Tolkien. Can you
Indeed.
tell us a little bit about that too, please?
Yeah. So the show follows C.S. Lewis, the character I'm playing, and Tolkien over decades of their friendship. So it starts out when they meet at Oxford, as both of them were professors at Oxford University. Jack was about 27, and Tolkien was about 32, 33, somewhere around there. And it follows the entire course of their friendship, from Tolkien being instrumental in converting C.S. Lewis to Christianity. So that's a big moment of the play, is him realizing that he suddenly believes in God where he did not before. And then Tolkien saying, okay, but what about also Jesus? Jack is saying, no, I don't think it has anything to do with Jesus. This is something more pagan, and this is something more wild than that. Eventually, Tolkien convinces him to convert. There's a new member to the Inklings, Charles Williams, which Jack is just really taken by his writings, taken by his work. Tolkien thinks they're a little too French and dark, so he doesn't approve of William's writings ever. They also have a lot of differences in the way that they approach Christianity. So Jack converts into Protestantism. Tolkien is a Catholic, and they really butt heads about that quite a bit in terms of evangelism. So even though Tolkien evangelized C.S. Lewis into Christianity, Lewis is doing all of these talks on the BBC radio, which later became Mere Christianity, for the layman about, this is what the Bible says about X. This is how Christians should behave about X and Y. But Tolkien never approved of this evangelism, so that becomes another big butting head point. So it's really examining how they celebrate each other's victories, and how eventually they just stretch apart and lose contact.
So at the end of their life, they're not active friends. Sorry.
Yeah, same question.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Not active friends at the end of the play. We have this big argument scene, and then they're never seen again together.
That's interesting. I wasn't aware of that.
Was Tolkien a prickly dude? Because I don't know much about him, but the stuff that you said that I've heard, he seems like he was my way or the highway type. Was that fair, or is that...
I would say that's a little fair. He definitely kept his heart close to his chest. Is that the right saying?
Yeah.
That sounds...
something along those lines. He very strongly was motivated by his family, his wife Edith and his 4 children. And he kept everything very close to himself. He didn't really try to spread himself out, which I think contributed to a lot of people thinking that he was prickly. But within the play, I would say he's the more prickly of the two, at least.
So faith, obviously, a major theme or important theme of the play. And as you know, this is a podcast where we often explore the intersection of themes of play and faith and spirituality and religion. And do you see those two worlds overlapping or intersecting for you, theater and faith, or theater and play, or have you learned things over time from being a writer or actor or director that have informed your faith, or vice versa?
Certainly, yeah. So I think about the origins of theater here, which was the ancient Greeks would put on plays to honor their gods, right? And then I think, to me, theater is so steeped in spirituality that even Jesus speaking the parables, what he's doing there is telling stories and captivating people, telling them of his faith principles through storytelling. And I think a lot of that happens in theater as well for me. I can really connect with characters, especially when they're as dense as C.S. Lewis, when they have so much story to tell. That is a very spiritual feeling for me, that I am connecting with these characters because of who they are, but also I'm trying to... It's the 1 Corinthians 10:31. So whether you eat or drink or whatever you do all to the glory of God. So if I am acting on stage, no matter what role it is, I'm doing it for the glory of God, and then he is allowing me to play this character to the best of my ability. That's how I feel.
Yeah. Using the gifts that God has given you the best that you can, to play out play out those roles, those purposes that God has put in your heart and in your life.
Yeah. There's also off stage. After you.
Well, I was just going to say.
I'm going to roll for Caleb in this situation.
Yeah, that's right. Critical hit for Caleb. Yeah.
Roll for damage.
So even off stage, I have had other actors approach me and say, Caleb, I can tell that you're a Christian because of the way that you behave off stage. Which to me, I think that is even more than the connection of faith and theater. That's important to me, that people can see who I am based on the way that I behave, the way I act, so to speak.
Yeah, right. Yep. What a wonderful witness, what a wonderful thing to hear. Yeah.
Yeah. Right.
I suppose those of you in the theater world think and talk about this a lot and find it probably elementary, but it's never really occurred to me that theater, what we're doing is storytelling, right? That you're telling stories, and you're right. I mean, storytelling is it's the language of faith, right? It's the language of the Spirit. It's how we find meaning.
And it's communal. Unlike reading a book is great, but it is more of a solitary experience. You are connected to the writer. Somewhat you're connected to others when you discuss it and have a shared, I love that book too. But you're not creating something, and the audience is part of the creation in a sort of implicit way, like not on stage, but they're adding to the energy and they're responding. And so there is a magic to it. The lights go down and something happens, the lights go up. So. In terms of the play, and that's why Balthazar, the guy I studied in grad school, he uses play and drama as a structure for God's entire interaction with the world, and writes his dogmatics about religion based on that. So he thought there's a lot of ideas in it as well. Sort of the drama of God entering the world stage in Christ for Christians. That's a very Christian notion, but we do what we got to do, right? I mean, that's who we are.
And I guess it reminds me, there's this notion also that that religious ritual is essentially kind of holy play, right? Or sacralized play.
And worship has a playful aspect too. I mean, sometimes the acolytes at my church fail, and I have to get the clicker and help them, and it's fine. It's fine, And the kids are cute. They can't ultimately fail, even when they fail to light the lights. Right?
That's right.
It's always a win, and everyone's just glad they're there. But there's a playfulness of, are they going to be able to get it lit with the? Is he going to have to get the little torch thing up? And it's really quite sweet.
Well. Go ahead.
Caleb, you're a non-recovering board game fan, as I understand it. That's fair.
Correct.
No recovery Daniel and I are also the same way. What are some things you enjoy playing, or some favorites?
Please stop me if I take this too long.
Oh, you're...
Yep.
This is one of those subjects you can talk about for days and still have more to talk about. So I'm a huge co-op board game fan. My number one game of all time is Spirit Island.
I knew you were going to say that. I've got to play this game.
Neat.
So good. So this is a game that took me probably 5 plays before it started to click. But for context, for listeners who don't know this game, Spirit Island, I think originally released in 2016, and it's designed by Eric Reuss, Reuss maybe. In which you are spirits on this island trying to stop invaders from colonizing your island. For example, one player could be playing as the ocean spirit who's trying to drown the invaders. Another player could be playing as the volcano spirit who's trying to blow up themselves and damaging themselves in the process, but also taking out the invaders. I just find it super thematic. I find the synergies between the two spirits, if you're playing in a 2-player game, or some people play solo with two spirits at the same time. It's a little too much for me.
That's my problem. I've tried the solo, and I'm the same way. And just,
Yeah.
yeah.
I have some friends online, and we play over Tabletop Simulator, where you can play all of the spirits, and just finding the synergies between two spirits is so fun to me. Very thematic. Yeah.
What about some others?
Okay, I'll quickly kind of rattle off some more co-ops that I love. Is So Clover, a word association party game.
Yep.
Hits every single time. Sky Team, a 2-player cooperative game where you are trying to land a plane together. One player is the pilot, one player is the co-pilot. Daybreak, where you're trying to work together to solve climate change.
Daybreak. It's so good.
You can play it for free on BoardGameArena.com, and it is a fantastic implementation.
Yeah.
I've played it probably 30 times on Board Game Arena live with my friends, and it is just fantastic.
I've heard it's kind of it's the same designer as Pandemic, right?
Yes.
Does it kind of have a Pandemic vibe, but with the climate change theme, or?
I would say it can snowball similarly to Pandemic, where you can quickly get out of your depth.
Okay.
Or
it's a
things
different
can
game.
all go your way.
Yeah. Okay.
But it is the mechanics and everything I think are quite different.
Mechanics very different.
Scientifically researched, I believe.
Okay.
Yes. They really paid attention. I'm talking about a game I've not played, but I've read about.
It's this really satisfying engine building with cards and tableau building. It's very satisfying.
Are you going to Geekway to the West by chance?
I'm not.
Yeah.
I don't have any cons lined up this year. I went to Gen Con last year, and I think that satisfied my cons for a couple of years.
Yeah, I've heard that's amazing.
Yeah.
Excellent.
See, Euro games. I love Euro games where you are building your own thing. I'm not a big fan of direct player interaction. As far as negative player interaction goes.
Why?
The Take That and the Mean games, it makes me feel bad for having to do it to other players. So games
that
like
sounds like what Daniel would
Viticulture
say.
or
I get you. Yeah, I'm the same way.
Yeah.
But Viticulture,
Viticulture, tableau builders like Arc Nova and Earth. Even some of the Garfield games are not too much negative player interaction. So Wayfarers of the South Tigris, Ezra and Nehemiah.
Yeah, no, they're very Euro camp, except for the Chaos Order type thing. Or, I think about this whole Euro, and this is, and probably most of our listeners know, Euro games are kind of defined by, you there's a timer, and you don't win by player elimination type thing, versus Ameritrash or more Monopoly type. And I don't know, I think the secret to the Ameritrash is you don't want to play with mean people, but it's just something really fun.
You really enjoy that, don't you?
Especially when the stories you can create. Yeah, and like somebody has an epic battle and they're lucky with their dice. Like there's an energy to that you're just not going to get from growing grapes, and sometimes you win and sometimes you lose, but and it's not fun to lose a lot, and I don't want anyone mean playing, so I know what you mean, but there's an energy to the Ameritrash that I kind of love, actually, because you get that Rocky moment of come back from the brink and you win. That's just really exciting.
The classic Thunder Road Vendetta.
Oh, that's coming for my birthday. You love that one?
My friends really, really like it. I've only played it once at Gen Con, and I thought it was fun. But
I've never tried that.
I played at Tantrum Con with a great group of, they were mostly strangers, and we laughed so hard. I mean, there were earthquakes and cars were blowing up, and it was just, that is, I love that game because it's fun and silly. So
that's a good point.
Anyway.
It depends largely on I
think you need to have the right group.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
And hopefully you balance
games
out. Yeah. But hopefully everyone gets a chance to win. That would be the perfect situation.
Like a co-op.
Like a co-op. That's right.
Someone should design like this mega game that is basically all these little Ameritrash games that then lead into a big co-op thing. That would be really awesome. It's almost like a game within a games, like a big clock type thing. In terms of the different little mechanisms that all work together or something, that would be fits. But yeah, like a co-op.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, you playing anything new, Daniel?
Oh, I'm playing anything new. You know, this game's been out for about a year or two, but I just got it, and I love it. Veil of Eternity.
Right.
That's a great game.
I demoed it when I was at Geekway. It was kind of a cool game. Yeah.
It's easy to set up, and it's one of the, I feel like it's a great game because it's one of those games I just want to keep playing again and again and again and again. Forest Shuffle 2 is a new one we just got, which has been around again.
Played that a few times.
I just want to keep playing that again and again. Yeah.
I'm so bad at that game, but it is a cool game.
How about you, Kevin? Anything new for you?
I haven't been playing a bit. It's kind of sad. I'm back to playing Legacy of You again. That and Hadrian's Wall are just really satisfying.
Those are great.
1 hour solo, and I know kind of what to do, and I don't have to think. I think, but not super hard. So it's probably. I did get that Amun-Re.
Yeah.
Is it Amun-Re by Reiner Knizia? I played that with some folks. That's kind of a neat little auction game.
Cool.
Yeah. All right.
Well, Caleb, how can people find you if they want to find out more information about you?
Sure. I have a website, calebcabiness.com, or probably you can find me on Instagram, Caleb_Cabiness.
Great. Thank you so much.
I'll put links. Yep.
We'll have links in the show notes, in the description. Kevin's the master of such things. You're amazing. Thank you. And there it is.
Daniel Ari Wittgenstein, and then
your notes are amazing. I
wrote them upside down. It's really amazing.
That's really cool.
No, I didn't. I just lied.
And backwards.
Yeah. That's actually the screen is fixing it for you, but it's encoded.
Kevin, how can people find us?
We are at info@playsavestheworld.com.
.org. .org.
We've had some changes in management.
We have. I'm sorry. It was. That's right. Our last domain name was .com, and I keep switching back to that. But yeah, it's playsavestheworld.org.
Yeah.
Info.
Yeah, it should be just .Daniel, but Daniel refused. He's too humble.
I'm not worthy of a domain name. I'm not worthy to occupy this space with you and Caleb.
Yep. They put me on the dark web because that's the only place that .Kevin's worthy of is the dark web. It's tough. It's a tough life. All right.
Yeah.
Well, thanks everybody.
Yeah, Caleb, thanks again so much for joining us.
Yep.
Thank you for having me. It was truly an honor.
Thanks.
It's been great. All right.
Bye-bye.
See you, everybody. Bye-bye.